to the next session, which is a different format where we have a theme-based session, and the theme is transforming 1.3 billion lives, right? And it could be in multiple ways that will achieve that. And then to hear about that, we have three distinguished speakers with us here. I'll introduce all three of them, and then they'll go in sequence one by one to share their thoughts on how do we transform the 1.3 billion lives. To start with, my pleasure to welcome Dr. Taslim, Dr. Taslimarif Sayed. Dr. Sayed's initial training has been in neuroscience, where he received his PhD from Max Planck Institute for Brain Research, Germany, and followed it up by postdoctoral training at University of California, San Francisco. At the same time, he also underwent training in management for biotech and innovation from QB3 at UC Santa Cruz, UC Berkeley, and UC San Francisco. He has also completed a biotech management program for biotech executives at Wharton School of Management. Dr. Syed is an adjunct faculty at IIT Madras and also Amrita Institute School of Biotechnology. He also heads the Discovery to Innovation Accelerator program at CCAMP. He's actively involved in promoting innovation in life sciences, healthcare, by supporting translation of discoveries to application, entrepreneurship, and technology development. Welcome, Dr. Taslim. Our second speaker is Dileep Mangsuli. Dileep has had a long and illustrious career with GE, spanning nearly 25 years. He began as a program manager for GE Power Controls in 1995 and held several prominent positions in GE Consumer and Industrial China and USA, GE Industrial Solutions, GE Hyderabad Technology Center, before assuming his current role as CTO of Wipro-GE Healthcare. Welcome, Dileep.
Thank you.
And our third speaker is Mr. Rahim Roy, who is a partner at Omnivore, Chennai. He joined Omnivore in 2013 and runs the Chennai office. In addition to this investment responsibilities, he serves as Omnivore's ENS and Business Integrity Officer. Previously, Reihem was an associate at Wilgrow, a social impact fund and incubator. At Wilgrow, he co-founded the incubator's healthcare practice while building a portfolio of social enterprise investments across agriculture, healthcare, and energy. Reihem began his career as an analyst at the UN International Fund for Agriculture Development, and he was assigned to fund West and Central Africa portfolio. He has earned a BA in economics from the University of Madras and an MSc in environmental economics from the University of East Anglia. Welcome, Reihem. With that, I will pass on the stage first to Dr. Sayed. Sayed, you can switch on your video, unmute your mic, and then welcome to the stage.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Yes. Yeah. I'm outside, so I may not be able to run through the video. So my apologies, but many thanks for this kind invite, and I'm very excited to be a part of this panel. As the title goes, transforming 1.3 billion lives, it clearly makes sense. And when we talk about this aspect, which are the few or which are the main pillars of transforming lives when we begin with? As we all know, I just want to share with everyone, health. In today's time, we clearly realized health is one of the main pillars of our, our sustenance, our survival, our growth, everything. On that, you put how you actually build a larger ecosystem that would have right components of agriculture as well as education. These are the three main broad areas that are truly important for everyone, regardless, are you a healthcare practitioner, are you an agricultural practitioner, or if you're an education practitioner, or leveraging these pillars, everyone has a need for that. And that's, I think this is truly a very important panel to see how technology, that is either an electronic, semiconductor, or broad theme of technologies, actually can utilize and leverage to take these sectors to transform the lives around us. And to be honest, we all agree that there are a lot of things that needs to be done around us. There are many people who are struggling in many areas, in three of them, and this is a larger community that is struggling. And I think technology is the right intervention, which actually can disrupt the way traditionally or conventionally a sector is approached and build forward. And I think I'm delighted that we are covering this aspect, and we have fantastic panel. I was hoping Satya would join as well, Dr. Satya Gupta, but we have Dileep, who is a good friend and I've known him for a while, as well as great to connect with Reihem as well to see how their work actually impacts the technological intervention to take these sectors forward. So this is a larger theme, and I'm happy to share some of our work from CCAM, but I'll keep it for the latter, and then possibly begin with a first round of this panel, where I wanted to invite both panelists one by one to introduce their work. I think they have been introduced now, and they are phenomenally talented. But introduce their work in the sector in 5 minutes or so, and where do they see the sector going forward? So, if I may request Dilip first to go and then take it from there. Dilip?
Yes. Thanks, Taslim, for that introduction. I think, we have entered a zone where healthcare and the digital technology got absolutely a forward kick during this COVID-19. There's a saying that sometimes for decades, nothing happens. And suddenly a decade happens within weeks. And this is exactly what happened in last few months. I think we never imagined that the things would move so quickly on the digital side. I think one of the things that we always believed that if we need to move towards affordable, accessible, and accurate healthcare in the world as well as in India, we had to move towards a digital framework for solutions. And we have been trying it globally, and there has been a significant progress that has been happening. Typically when I talk about the measure of success in terms of how much of penetration is happening in terms of the digital technologies, how much of movement is happening globally, I try to look at it measurement from one exhibition that happens every year in Chicago during the month of December. It's called RSNA. So in 2016, when I had visited that, there were about 5 software companies who were trying to showcase their technology in healthcare world. And by 2018, it had become almost 135 companies. In 2 years, it moved to 135 companies. And when I went in December 2019, the number was phenomenal. In fact, they had created a separate pavilion for AI solutions on healthcare. And this was the number of companies in that pavilion were more than 350. So it's unbelievably fast-paced movement that is happening in the healthcare sector. And it was also heartening to see the number of startups from India who were participating. There were 6 Indian startups who were showcasing their technology. And their technology was equal to almost anyone in the world. And if I think about how is it, what is it that is driving? If you think about it, one of the things that got amplified in the very big way was a global resource constraint. We knew we had resource constraint everywhere, even in India, but it was not magnified as much as it got magnified during the time of COVID-19. And as you could see, when the COVID hit us, everyone in the country, almost anyone who understood technology wanted to design a ventilator, and they wanted to really find a way to really help the country in making more ventilators. Though that was not a right way of looking at it, but everyone was enthusiastic to do that. And the technology could not really help as quickly as we could. Aging population is really driving a big change. As all of us know, I think last several years, if one thing had changed, the longevity of people had changed. By doing so, it has also brought in the challenges for managing the aging population's health. And during the pandemic time, it is even more challenging. Consumer awareness has gone absolutely north. It's becoming very big in terms of understanding of health needs, and that is trending a huge change in the way healthcare sector should move. And digitization and digital technologies, these are the big ones which are coming now towards a new technology which was never thought of before. Pandemic itself, if you think about it, has created a few areas that I think are irreversibly changing now. One, digital is irreversibly taken a huge path forward. We were working with almost 5 startups last year to work on our platform. And of the 5 startups, within 2 months, the 3 startups came up with the COVID solutions for detecting COVID through CT and X rays. This was unbelievable work done in shortest of time, where the time was of essence and data was absolutely scarce. And these people managed to really do that amazingly fast and amazingly well. And we have deployed those solutions now for, in fact, yesterday I read from their website, they completed more than 10,000 tests on COVID using the AI solutions. These are amazing technologies. The second thing that's going to change is the home care solutions is going to take a big leap forward. Because of COVID, I think home care is becoming even more important, and technologies will start developing around that. And we will see a huge progression in those technologies on AI as well as technology on the uh, IoT devices, which will help in transmitting the data from patients to the cloud, and how do we manage all that. Teleconsultations has taken, in fact, in some cases, it has taken 100 times more than what it used to be. Boston Mass Hospital recorded that they used to see about 5 teleconsultation patients in a day, and that changed to 5,000 teleconsultations in a day. So that's a huge increase. Even in India, people are not willing to go to hospital presently, and even they are being encouraged by the doctors to remain at home. So teleconsultations will continue to grow. And the tele ICU, with the number of people that are there in hospital, it becomes very difficult to manage their condition. And to really bring in a better focus on the people who need a special care, and new technologies are developed. And the tele ICU, we in fact, during the time of COVID, in 3 weeks' time, GE and Microsoft together, we came up with a solution called Mural for COVID. It's a tele ICU solution, which is more in terms of hundreds of patients can be monitored simultaneously. And the patients who are really deteriorating in their health get amplified in front of the central uh, station where people look at it, and then the right patients can be given right attention. I think these will continue to really drive a change in the way the patients are being cared. The regulations are going to change. I think during the COVID time, we saw there was a decrease in, or rather, a little bit of lax in terms of regulations. In fact, FDA allowed a lot of emergency usage of devices, and now it will get tightened, and we will see even newer regulations coming on AI and digital technologies, and government will start funding more. And I do see these are going to be probably something, if anyone thought that we could probably live with a lesser per capita spend on the uh, healthcare, probably that's not going to be the case. Manish Gupta talked about it. India spending $209 per capita on healthcare in India. Well, that's going to go maybe 10 times. It's something that's going to change. And we did see a lot of impact because of those things, and also a change in the policy in terms of being self reliant becoming more important. Healthcare is going to see a lot more self reliant developments on the manufacturing side, as we could not really import during the time of COVID. A lot of equipment that were needed or the components that were needed is going to be definitely a huge focus and a huge drive in that. The patient comfort, clinicians and the staff comfort. How do you really manage patients with minimal touch points? When I say minimal touch points, today, if anyone puts his hand in front of you for a shake hand, you will think 10 times. In fact, you won't shake hands with anyone. And imagine if a patient and a clinician need to really manage their consultation. This needs to be managed with a minimal touch points. How safely that you can do it. Then each equipment that is being designed today needs to be put in with that thought process as can there be a minimal touch points that we can design to? And can we have a safe and easy way of managing each patient after patient so that there is no infection being passed over from one patient to another patient? A lot of technology around it, a lot of connected devices that are going to drive this. So that's going to really make millions of devices that are there in the world need to be connected together. And IoT is the only way that you need to really look at connecting. 5G is going to come. 5G is going to really revolutionize that. Government's policy on the digital health stack is going to really put a backbone for the entire digital health policy for the country, as well as developing a lot of vertical and horizontal solutions. I think to me, if I think about it, if I want to put it in one word, I will say when electricity started, the first thing that everyone thought was it's for lighting a bulb. But if you think of electricity today, electricity not only lights the bulb, but it also powers your computer, it powers your pump, it powers your microwave, it powers everything. So AI today is not going to be about one piece of outcome. We saw that in presentation by Manish Gupta on Google side. It's not going to be about one piece of technology on healthcare. It's going to be multiple pieces, bringing acumen, bringing the uniformed outcome through multiple detections, and how do you really create outcome for a patient and safety for a patient and comfort for staff. So all those things are going to be the way in which AI will start playing, and I'm excited about it. I think the the kick that we have in terms of the forward motion will continue to go that way. Uh, so the future of healthcare is going to be probably a lot more smarter people will be partnering there, and that's going to be the future.
Thank you so much, Dileep. That was a very comprehensive overview of, how technology and, if you want to say, digital health is going to actually play a major role, and you know, and where do we see, globally how things are changing. You talked about, the emerging trends. You talked about how things are changing in terms of on the ground because of the current situation. Uh, And I have a question for you, which I'll possibly ask a bit later. But it's a
Yeah,
very important thing. And you actually also said, Dilip, that from a GE perspective, how you are looking to engage with startups which are building new innovations and new technology and
right.
integrate their solutions on your platform to bring it forward, which is fantastic because if you're going to talk about, and we really in COVID situation, we realized that we were possibly found, as one would say, that equipmentless, we were unequipped in terms
Right.
of response to COVID for so many things, including the diagnostic kits, which are as of today not enough, to be honest. We do not have enough. You and me cannot go and just get ourselves tested. People need to test multiple times. We did have other support systems like respiratory systems, not only ventilators, but respiratory systems, and many other aspects, like, as you said, the diagnostics like CT scan based or cuff based AI solutions. And then people have also done something in hospitals when they have a remote vital monitoring system. So the doctors do not need to be near patients to understand what's their situation and so on. And these are very important, but the challenge happens is that while they're being built, one of the challenges that I think we all need to agree on, something that we all need to talk about, is that adoption, this adaptation in the market. It takes a very long time in India. That's a challenge that I do not know how to, it takes, we can build fantastic things, but the final implementation or dissemination is actually has remained a challenge and something we should talk about in healthcare.
Yeah.
But we'll come back to the Dileep.
Okay.
Let me go to Reihem. Hi, Reihem. Fantastic to have you here with us. I wanted you to possibly say a little bit about yourself, your work, and the sector that you think has a potential to be impacted from the technological intervention. We heard fantastic things from Dileep here in terms of healthcare and digital health, which I strongly believe in. And India would be possibly the biggest beneficiary if we do well in digital health. But coming to you from your background, just wanted to understand your work and if you can share with all of us. Thanks to you. Over to you, Priya.
Hi, thanks so much for the opportunity. I think I'll just take a moment, a few sentences about Omnivore, the fund which I represent, and then maybe I'll provide some context. So Omnivore is a venture capital fund focused exclusively on agri-tech. So we really exist at that nexus between agriculture and technology. We've been around since 2011. We manage two funds, collectively about 1,000 crores, which is deployed into early stage technology startups that are solving solving for the big problems across agriculture and food. So just before I dive in, I mean, this is a sector which is relatively new in terms of its relationship with the sort of cutting edge of technology, as it were. I think in that sense, it lags a little behind sectors like healthcare, where technology and healthcare have really been abreast with each other and moving together. So let me take a few moments, if I can, and just sort of provide the audience and my fellow panelists with some context as to why agriculture is a sort of an exciting opportunity for the tech sector per se, and try and make it relevant for the audience.
Sure, so, please go ahead. Yeah.
So high level, I think just I'm going to run you past a couple of numbers. So 17.4, we could say 18% of India's GDP is agriculture, right? And we're unique for a couple of reasons. One being that the average farm holding size here is about 1.5 hectares, and half the population works in agriculture. Unlike many developing countries, we're actually self-sufficient when it comes to most of our agriculture. So in terms of production, we're globally first in milk and pulses and spices, and we're pretty much number 2, 3, worst case 4 in every other sort of large commodity. And if we look at the opportunities, they range from farm inputs in terms of seeds, fertilizers, and the things that we're putting into farms. The farming itself, which could be plantations, aquaculture, growing shrimp, livestock management. And then it starts getting more and more, let's say, tech savvy, because we start thinking about storage and trading, and then we start thinking about agri-processing, and we start thinking about distribution and retail. There are basically 3 sort of pillars driving the agri-industry, and as a result, 3 pillars driving and shaping the role that technology is playing in the agri-industry right now. And that's demand, supply, and sort of the overall ecosystem. And I think each of these sort of plays with each other and allows for opportunities to arise, and definitely so for the tech sector. So we have Indian diets shifting, people consuming more protein, more vegetables, and this trend will continue. We've seen it in China, we've seen it in Southeast Asia. We have major bottlenecks in terms of market access, logistics, labor, and this is sort of defining the supply of this equation. And then there's the ecosystem, which I think is most interesting for this conversation. So the agri-food, rural sort of the meeting point of these three areas has been leveraging the advances in the tech industry now for about a decade. Why? I think first and foremost because most early stage startups, most of the scale startups in this country are led by people with expertise in either IT, so software or hardware, and to a lesser extent biotech, pharma, and maybe auto engineering. So we have these deep pools of technical talent in India, combined with these sort of macro agri trends that I talked about earlier, which sort of come together to create this perfect storm, if you will, where technology is now poised to technology and agriculture are now sort of poised to operate at a level that perhaps technology and healthcare, technology and edtech have operated at earlier. Should I continue here and talk a little more, or should we address that later? No, I'm just trying to understand whether I should, I would love to talk a little bit about the role of. Yeah, go ahead.
The technical issue. Reihem?
No, I'm able to hear you. Are you able to hear me?
Yeah, Reihem, we can hear you. I think Taslim is trying to speak, and maybe I think he's not able to.
Okay.
Yeah, so maybe you continue, finish your thoughts, and hopefully Taslim gets back.
Okay, sure. So, I mean, very quickly, I just wanted to try and make this relevant. If we look at technology and agriculture, there isn't an immediate conclusion that one jumps to in terms of the relevance of the semiconductor industry, of the high-tech tech industry to agriculture. But that's a changing landscape, and I just wanted to highlight some of that. So traditionally, mechanization or technology in agriculture was linked to rudimentary hardware. It was tractors, tillers, harvesters, and this really defined tech and agriculture till maybe the mid-90s. When we had the start of the IoT revolution, and this is very important, in 2008, I think things began to change quite rapidly. First at the global stage, and then definitely for India as well. By 2012, I think for the first time, we had India working with satellite data and remote sensing for things like yield prediction for farms, drought prediction, and crop insurance at a district level. And this was happening for the first time. As IoT and tech and AI were progressing, there was about almost a decade-long lag where agriculture was beginning to use these tools to sort of catch up. That lag has now reduced significantly to a stage where I see deep tech, artificial intelligence, machine learning being deployed almost on a monthly basis for solving new problems in agriculture. Perhaps what's most exciting is that we're seeing a situation where, because of increased connectivity, these solutions are now becoming smaller, cheaper, and a lot more efficient. And we can actually put, for example, small robots with AI on edge in the hands of a smallholder farmer to take care of weed problems and pesticide problems on plants. So we're moving quite rapidly, and perhaps if I'm not eating into too much time, later on we can talk about specific examples there.
Thanks, Reihem. I think That's again a very, very good view of, agri-tech component in terms of how you see the technology changing the landscape of agriculture. And uh, so just let me just now take a step back. I think we heard fantastic work done by GE as well as Omnivore in different fields of healthcare and agriculture. If I step back and just share one or two lines about CCAM, which is a Department of Biotechnology, Government of India supported organization in Bangalore. We have around nearly 180 to 200 startups. We work in the areas of life sciences largely, which covers both health as well as agriculture. And our mandate is largely to build deep science innovations, where you identify great science and build innovations from there. What we have seen is that I think last 7 to 8 years have been fairly good in terms of building new capabilities. What has also been the challenge, both in healthcare and agriculture as well, is that those haven't really been taken over by the sector. They haven't been taken up by many people at large at the practitioner level. There have been a few cases you can show as a case studies, but there hasn't been really so there's something missing at both in the dissemination aspect. And somebody who is very keen to see the impact of it, I'm not coming from the negative side, but I wanted to ask both of you, what do you think that is important for such disruptive technologies to be taken up at mass level, at large, not very late? We can all see the potential, but when do they realize their potential and the promise? Why does it take so long? So if I may start with Dileep, somebody who has seen it from the corporate world, what do you think we need to change, at least in India, in healthcare for our exciting scientific technologies that we have discussed on stage or otherwise together? There is phenomenal work people have done, and I can give you many examples that have come out of CCAM. It does take some time to be, taken up by at large level, be it hospitals, be it diagnostics, be it pharmaceutical companies. Dilip, what's your view on this?
Well, I think you brought in a very interesting point. The technologies that have been developed are so fascinating. We all get excited about the possible outcome of that. And when we deploy, we don't see the actual impact in terms of the usage, adaptation. One of the reason I have seen this happen is because one, there are no good business models that have been created. All the AI technology that we are talking about, these are all still considered as assisting certain thing that is already there. Like, when a person buys a CT machine, he pays for the CT machine and he expects everything else to be coming along with floppy disk or a CD. AI is considered that way in many cases. They say that, hey, you know what? I've already paid for CT. I have paid millions of dollars. And when I want to use it, that is one, creating a strong business model which actually makes success for both clinician as well as for the person who has developed it. The second piece where we see is again the fear of technology replacing the skill set, which is not true actually in many cases. In fact, if I can say that, I will say it, the technology will replace the people who do not use technology. You need to use this to really make sure you are utilizing your time well. One of the study that was done, UK, which is supposed to have a very good patient doctor time that is spent during consultation. There also, the time that a doctor spends with a patient is only about 2.5 minutes, 2 minute 40 seconds or so. Now, this is because there is so much of paperwork that happens, so much of documentation that happens. It's all being done by the doctor, and the actual interaction is very less. Now, the technology, if it is able to create that, if we are talking about natural language processing that can help capture all the thoughts in a structured way, create a documentation that's going to help him spend more time with the patient, that can make it really impactful. Now, one, like I said, creating a business model, one who creates the technology needs to see how he is going to get the benefit out of it. And the one who is using it, he should know that it's not going to replace him, it's going to replace someone who doesn't use technology. So these are two of the big reasons I see as the ones that are creating a challenge. The third one, even bigger, I would say, these technologies still do not have a kind of a stamp of approval from the worlds of FDAs and regulations because it is still considered nascent. It is still considered not good enough to make sure that life of a patient is put in a danger. You should not really enter into that zone. That's why FDA is still very careful. But my reading is it's going to change after COVID goes out. I think probably there is going to be acceleration in finding a ways and means of approving these technologies. So the regulation piece is a big one. Data that is available today is not even good enough to really make this happen with a larger data sets because the data sets itself are not structured. They are not anonymized. The privacy is a challenge. Using of this data to bring to a next level of accuracy. As you know, AI gets better with more data. And the AI itself need to develop technologies to create a structured data first. I think that is also happening. How do you create a data to help AI? So you need to create an AI to create structured data. So that itself is also a lot of work being done by companies. So to me, three, like I said, one, we need to really figure out how the data structures will help in creating that acceptable and accurate and regulation approved technology, which will become accessible and acceptable to everyone. Second, making sure that the business models develop. The business models is very important. Develop that is going to help companies sustain these technologies because it requires a huge amount of work to be done, and that requires to be taken. You need to get back that kind of money. So those, if we are able to address it, we'll be able to probably see a bigger adaptation in the future.
No, thanks, Dileep. I think a few points. I'll just pick the ones that I think for me will be on top. One, you talked about behavioral patterns in
Yeah,
terms of technologies aspect compared to the hardware or other human aspect of it. Second, possibly you mentioned regulatory as a challenge to do that, and the third possibly say large data structures. And I think these three are important. And while we may not have time to delve into it, I think there has to be a larger, if India needs to actually really do well, it has to pick such technologies and excel in it so that we can actually overcome the limitations that we have had it in terms of manufacturing and design and engineering that
correct.
we haven't built for long. So this is an opportunity. But then we have to pick these 3 points and possibly a few more and a national attempt. And, I gather that one of the sessions we have Dr. Rajiv Kumar, who is the Niti Aayog vice chair, and somebody who is really important in terms of policy making. I think it has to come from the right top to actually ensure that emerging technologies get a kind of a freeway. As in the US or in the US, Europe, you have a dedicated lane. We have to create dedicated lane for emerging technologies and allow them to flourish rather than getting stuck in the middle of the chaos that otherwise exists. So thank you for
Absolutely.
that, Dilip.
Absolutely. In
Just
fact, I'm really
yeah,
glad that National Digital Health Mission has started, which is in the right direction.
exactly. I agree with you. But yeah, but we have to, kind of put more hammers on this, nails,
Correct.
and then really solid them out. Coming
Right.
to Reihem, I'm also aware of the time. Reihem, very quickly, where do you think agri-tech changing the world in next 1 year in India? I'm just asking a very brief and very specific question. What is going to change, possibly not even 1 year, 2 years, agri-tech in terms of technologies in agriculture? What would be the biggest impact for India, not particularly for a farmer, for India?
So I think the biggest impact, without doubt, is going to be farming intelligence is going to go up. For the simple reason that, just a quick point here, I think the benefit that Agri has when it comes to tech deployment is that there's no legacy tech in place. It's not that we have landlines and we have to replace them with mobile cellular technology. We're jumping straight into cellular technology. That's the example here. Since we're dealing with a population that's looking for a very specific solution, we need to sell the solution as opposed to sell the technology. Nobody needs to sell artificial intelligence to a farmer who's trying to use his cellular phone to figure out what disease he has in his crop. No one needs to sell machine learning to a farmer that's trying to figure out if his irrigation is working the way it should or shouldn't. Instead, what needs to be sold is incredibly to the point decision-making systems. That's what people are willing to pay for, and that's what should be sold. The tech that's driving it actually needs to be understood by very few people. So in that sense, deployment is a lot easier as long as you're selling the solution and not selling the technology. And that's something that we've seen across the board with agriculture. But to answer your question, without doubt, I think the one thing that we're going to see, cellular penetration is going through the roof. Handsets are getting cheaper. Data transfer is getting faster. And definitely the number one thing we're going to see is intelligent farming. People relying and indirectly creating these massive data sets, which in turn are going to create very, very accurate ML and AI platforms, which are able to tell people effectively and immediately whether their farming decisions are in the right direction or not.
Excellent. No, thank you, Reihem. If we were having a coffee somewhere, I would ask you, which I'm going to ask you now. What do you think? What is the percentage of intelligence-based farming right now, and what percentage would change in 2 years? Do we think we have those numbers?
So I think right now we look at farmers who we consider progressive, because that's usually the term that's used in the industry. We're talking less than 8 to 10% right now who are applying science. And I'm not by any means questioning our traditional methods, but I'm saying applying concepts such as group learning, which is effectively what a farmer would view machine learning as. Can I learn from the successes and mistakes of 5 million other farmers who are using cell phones to figure things out? That's how they view it. So that number is very, very small. But given cellular penetration, we don't need to build the infrastructure here. Jio is doing that for us. Airtel is doing that for us.
Correct.
We just need to ride that wave. People are buying cellular phones to watch videos, to keep in touch with their loved ones. We merely need to piggyback on that. So we're not the driver of this wave here. We're merely riding the wave.
No, absolutely, and I think this. If there is a wave, it is better to ride and build on it, and I hope we can do that, because definitely there are several take home in terms of the benefits that will come up through that. I do hope the agriculture remains one of the major important thing where people can not only, as you rightly said, learn from the broad aspects, but also connect with far-sitting experts, people who are on the other side, and then engage with them just like healthcare is attempting to do by
Absolutely.
actually showing them what's happening around them. And even if within agri-tech, the allied and agri and allied is animal husbandry, that is another, because in a way, to be honest, a lot of agriculture farmers are actually now dairy farmers, where they are a lot of them are actually relying on the outcome from the dairy rather than the real agriculture, which is
Absolutely.
just largely to keep going, but their daily returns come from dairy. So even that is an important component. So these are really important. I think I really hope that technology would enable actually bring this together. So there are really very important aspects that we need to look at, and I'm glad that we had both Dileep and you talk about it. Just to from our side, we continue to do efforts in that. We have really some of the stunning technologies also building, and what we are hoping now is that together we can take those technologies to the final user so that the impact actually is, achieved. I will stop here in terms of the broad, fantastic discussion we have had, and I'll give it back to the organizer to see if there are questions that can be taken up, or if the time is over. I was given a time of 4:30.
Yeah.
If the time is over, I will let them decide on the next course of action. So back to you, organizer. Thank you both, Dileep and Reihem.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you
Fantastic
very
to
much.
hear.
Yeah.
Thank you. Great.
Thank you. Thanks.
Thank you, Taslim, Reihem, and Dileep. That was a very engaging discussion. But I think if we were in a physical conference, maybe we could have continued after finishing this on some of these thoughts, as well as bringing some questions from the audience. Since we are running late and at the end of the day, we'll go ahead with the rest of the event because you already engaged in some of the Q&A, and maybe follow up some things later after the event.
Okay.
On that behalf,
Thank you so much.
on behalf of the team, I would like to thank each one of you. Dileep, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Reihem, thank you very much. And Dr. Taslim, thank you for driving this. This was very intuitive.